Do 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 do. I'm loving it. What am I loving? I'm loving myself. I'm loving my body. Huh?
Yeah, you actually tied that in there.
Right?
I've had McDonald's on the brain. Big
Oh
arch.
yes, the big arch.
Yeah.
Um,
Talk
which
about body image. Uh-oh.
hey now,
Yeah.
I think that body image is important. How are you feeling about your body today, Ollie?
I feel pretty good about it. It's so
Okay.
weird. Like as a someone who's probably it's irrevocable how much fat I've carried over the years, and now it's like I'm literally like almost 50 years old, and I don't think I am. I'm former fat, which is fine. But yeah, it's weird. I think I literally have embraced the fact that like I have inner strength, literally, and core. That's inner strength, right? Core and mental fortitude. But yeah, I finally feel good about it. But yeah, I still, and I love the word body dysmorphia. And actually, previous guest, former guest, Greg Scheinman, would literally show pictures because that dude's jacked, right? But he literally will show a picture where it's like body dysmorphia, and you're like, oh, he doesn't look so jacked because he's posing, and that's so true. So it's all in our heads.
Well, it's not all in our heads. Some of it is in the world, and then I think we get
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
inside our own
right.
heads. But I think I asked that question because we're going to be talking today about
Today? Oh man, I thought we were just gonna, talk about like things that pop into my brain every
we will do
5
that as
seconds.
well. But we also, this is part of our big question series, which, if you've been following along, we've been doing all summer long. And this is where we tackle a big, weighty topic that we think is pretty important, and we try to give some guidance to each other and maybe you, listener, on how to talk to your kids about this stuff. And I think that so many of the topics we handle as parents, as dads, is. Doing it better, dare I say, differently than the way we came up. Our parents did their best, but we are
I
doing
don't think so.
our
Not
best.
mine.
It was their best, Ollie. They did their best, the best they could.
Jesus, it was
Wasn't that good,
awful.
huh?
Yeah.
All right, well, potato, potato. Yeah, that's the same. Potato, potato. This is the big questions episode about how to talk to your kids about body image and
It's
weight.
important. It's
Our
important.
society has changed a bit when it comes to talking to people about their bodies. And I would say it's changed a little bit when it comes to how we talk to kids about their bodies. It's not perfect, but I think we're children of the 70s and 80s, and I think that was a time where kids were encouraged not to be fat to the extent where it was called tough love. And, we thought maybe if I bully you enough and call you enough names, you'll lose some weight.
Hmm.
Fat kids were a punchline, fat people were a punchline. There was no such thing as body positivity. You
Hmm.
know, you were to be ashamed of your fat body, you
Yeah.
little runt. Run some
Yeah.
laps,
Yeah.
maggot. And it was ha 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 ha. It was
Yeah.
the punchline of every TV show, every movie. And if we were to go back and look, I don't even think there were jokes. It was just calling people fat and, with different adjectives, homonyms for large, fat. I say all this from a personal place. I was never obese, clinically, but I was a chubby kid, and I think I always and still to this day struggled with compulsive eating and not feeling like super great in my body. And I grew up in a household that was obsessed with calories and dieting.
Really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And
Whoa.
you're on this hamster wheel of just like, well, you shouldn't eat that, or whoa, I'm on a diet. Like my parents were perpetually dieting. This was the '90s, Ollie, and it was Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and Sleep
Yeah.
Fast and the 8 Minute Abs, and we were just obsessed with having the perfect body and the perfect beach body. And come to find out, all these decades later, what's the perfect beach body?
Mm.
Anybody, anybody,
Oh,
everybody's. If you have
I
a
thought you were
body,
gonna say South Beach. I was like, it's probably South Beach.
no, the whole idea is if you have a body, it's a beach body because you're at the beach and you can enjoy it. And we only live once. And you know, do you remember Baz Luhrmann,
Yeah, actually, yes, I did.
director? But
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
remember sunscreen from Baz Luhrmann?
No,
This was a
no.
big thing in the 90s. It was like it was called Wear Sunscreen. And it was a song, I guess. It was like an audio track narrated by Baz Luhrmann, and he had all this advice, and it was called Wear Sunscreen. Let me see if I can pull this up. Baz Luhrmann, Wear Sunscreen, lyrics, even though it was really just spoken word.
Yeah.
And he said, if I could offer you only one tip for the future, sunscreen would be it. The long term benefits of sunscreen have been provided by scientists, whereas the rest of my advice has no basis. And he goes on and he says, enjoy the power of beauty in your youth. You will not understand the power and beauty of your youth until they have faded. But trust me, in 20 years, you'll look back at photos of yourself and recall in a way that you can't grasp now how much possibility lay before you and how fabulous you really looked. You are not as fat as you imagine. So
This
much
is
more
from
back there.
sunscreen? I just thought he was obsessed with skin cancer. Um, well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but
Please.
this actually will put us on track to stay on subject because if there is one thing I have been thinking about,
Uh huh.
and I have really just made great health strides in terms of aligning diet and been very consistent with embracing exercise and stuff. I think about this at times as I'm, literally like using heavier and heavier weight and literally getting stronger, right? I was like, man, I wish I had just jumped on this train 5 years sooner, because I do a lot of this stuff because I know that I have, diminished knees. I had an x-ray done a couple years ago and they were like, yeah, you're probably going to need a knee replacement. I'm hoping I've turned around or pushed that back many more years than at the time of that diagnosis. But I do think about, man, like, seize these changes. Obviously do it whenever you can, right? Develop good healthy habits whenever you can. But I do regret, like, it's like, man, like, because it is finite. The body wears and tears, and the sooner you can realize that you're not going to have the luxury of youth, the better. And that's something with Heath I think about in the back of my mind because he's athletic. It's weird to say it, but we're opposite ends. Like, he is very trim. He's a good-looking kid. We are not the same. If you put me next to him at his age, it's like, nah, not the same crew, world, whatever. But he's also in the phase of he kind of eats whatever he wants. He just shreds through pasta and stuff. And look, to a degree, it's fine. It's fine. But, this is the time where you go, a little more green on the plate. You know what I mean? Just to get those habits enforced. Because it's got to happen at some point. And
Sure.
the more you wait, the more you push it off.
Sure. And look, I think, and that's kind of why we're talking about this, right? Is there is this very true reality about healthy eating,
Hmm.
foods that power you. I think we with our kids, like to say like long energy and short energy. It's not that you know, candy and ice cream is a no or a never. It's just it's a different gives you a different kind of energy. That is a short energy, and the longer energies that can sustain you are let me see if I'm getting this right. Legumes, um, meats, proteins,
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe a cheese, certainly fruit and vegetables. But I think, what I want to talk about is less the diet and what you're putting into your body, although very important, healthy eating and nutrition,
Hmm.
something that you want want to teach our kids, but more about how we feel about our bodies and how
Yes.
we look. And
Yeah.
obviously, these things are related because what you put into your body affects how your body grows or shrinks or develops, and then how you feel about it. And I think I want to start with, what were the messages you got growing up about body size, both personal and societal? We are about a decade apart, and so I'm curious, like, what did you hear in your home? What did you hear on
Mhm.
TV? What did you hear in the locker room from the other boys? About your body and how did it affect you? And then tell me about how that's translated into what you talk to your son about in terms of his body, or do you? Is it a
Let's get
subject you?
into the old school, shall we? Because that was brutal. Yeah, what was it? I remember in sixth grade, we had to do some sort of foot race, and Rob Harper was like, "Hey, look at Big Butt go! There's Big Butt." Um, I was overweight. I remember like getting kind of tackled, and when you're an overweight boy, there's nothing quite emasculating like going, "Hey, hey, let's give this guy a titty twister," and it hurt. I remember doing swimming, and people would look at me and they'd be like, "What are those marks on you?" Because I had stretch marks. I still have them. They're residual stretch marks. And then, yeah, at home, it was very interesting. It was a very mixed message because at home, I grew up with parents who, came from like almost stereotypical third world. Like their Bangladesh was the cover of George Harrison's Concert for Bangladesh, a starving child with a fly doing laps around the old head. And so we were always taught to like finish our plates, but at the same time, like, and the nutrition data was skewed a little bit, right? Also, like, we were growing up in the 80s and no one really had the blueprint for, just so you know, this supersize me is not going to work out in a few years. We're going to hit the brakes on it. So, I think we just made a lot of mistakes and it was overall pretty brutal. It wasn't until I went to college and I was just around a different food culture where people were more health conscious. Because the other problem is too. This is what sucks is growing up. It's just that my body was different. Like I didn't metabolize like the other kids. You know what I mean? I also overate for sure, and I was inactive. But there were other kids who I wasn't. I think I did do a lot of overeating. We can get into that later. It's like kind of frightening how much that happened, but that was also because of to a degree my family unit and culturally too. It's kind of how I ended up on food with food because food's such a celebratory thing amongst
Sure.
culture. So yeah.
And then it became your job, which is hilarious.
Yeah, then there's that. It's so weird. Like I almost find myself now like I've had some this happened just a couple days ago where I don't really eat like late night taco stands anymore, but we had a volleyball thing and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna stop here. I found a good little taco place. And the next day I was telling Brearley, I was like, yeah, I can't do that anymore. I like my yogurts, I like my salad. Like I have changed. I mean, I'm not a lunatic. I'm not an obsessive. I've just found a way to bookend it right, and I like feeling okay. I'm also older too. But yeah, it's really weird. It's a food's been a source of pain and a source of pride. How about that?
I like that. You said something that perhaps I've thought about in the past, but not recently, because I too grew up in a home where food was love, and you finished your plate, and
Yeah.
and that was what it was all about. And I know that my grandparents really pushed food. I mean, that was like, there was to quote my friend Brogan from the All Inclusive, in abundance at my grandparents' house on Long Island of just a full refrigerator, and we rate it and then go out to dinner and just overeating, and it was just the culture. And I never made the connection, but when you were talking about the extreme uh, poverty and just lack of food and resources in Bangladesh, and I think about, okay, these are people who grew up in the Great Depression of America. My grandfather grew up in an orphanage, and my grandmother.
That hardcore. You know what I mean?
And
You get the
so,
Bengali badge for that one.
yeah, well, but it was an orphanage in New York, so how bad
It's
how
an
bad could
or
it be?
you
Yeah,
you said orphanage.
yeah.
What's up,
But you know
Annie?
what's
It's
funny
all
about
good.
that is my grandfather grew up in an orphanage, but his dad was alive. His mother died because she had a back alley abortion, and abortion wasn't legal, kind of like today, and so she died in getting trying to get an abortion. And he and his older brother were sent to an orphanage because the quote that I heard
Whoa.
many times was, men don't raise children. So his father remarried, had another kid. Meanwhile, they're in this orphanage, and then he went off to fight, in World War II, and then he worked
Dude.
nights in the Bronx selling tomatoes, and here I am doing a podcast. So a little bit cushier.
We have a lot in common because I bet if you look at our respected grandparents and their lives
Yeah,
to us,
yeah, yeah.
oh my god,
Right.
oh my god, shit. Guy was selling
So
what tomatoes, and you're watching Captain Planet and the Planeteers, and so was I, 10 years older.
hey, look. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's
Dude.
the way it goes. But I guess in as much as it relates to food and body, they stuffed my father and his siblings with food because food is love, and then we
Yeah.
learned food and eating patterns similarly, and then my wife and I try to learn from the what I believe are not the healthiest eating and food patterns and body, the way we talked about body image. And so with our kids, they don't really want for anything. And as a result, it is the craziest thing to me that they go, I'm done. And I'm like, you're done.
Yeah.
There's good. There's good food on
Same.
that plate. Are you crazy? But we don't push
Same.
it. We say, are you sure?
Yeah.
Your belly full? Do you feel
Yeah.
like you got all the nutrition? And then we let it go. And it really hurts my heart to have to throw food away. It feels wasteful. It,
Yeah.
it goes against every bone in my body. Sometimes I will finish it for them. And then
Oh,
sometimes, yeah,
so bad.
sometimes you wrap it up, put it in the fridge, and sometimes it goes in the trash. But I heard this quote a number of years ago that was like, it's better for food to waste outside your body than inside of it. Like, don't put wasted food inside of you just because you think that that's where it belongs. If you are full and not needing it, it should not go in your body. And
Yeah.
I say all this, I know we're kind of getting off track because what I really want to talk about, eventually we'll get there, is how do we talk about our bodies? And when our
Mm.
kids come to us with questions about their bodies and size and, loving themselves, it's so interesting because we grew up hearing, it's what's inside that counts. But we live in the world. And we know that we can hear that. It's what's inside that matters. But like then you turn on the TV or go on Instagram or go down, to your local park or swimming pool, and it's very visual. Life is a very visual medium, and people will comment on your body and they will make judgments on your body and vice versa. And
Hmm.
how do we I think, look, you're a almost 50-year-old man. I am in my 40s. And I think we have been processing our own relationship with our bodies and the messages that we've received. And also, we're men, who were boys, which is not to say that we aren't affected by it, but are perhaps affected in less extreme ways than girls and women. And
Yeah.
so, we have that kind of hindsight and wealth of experience of decades of processing all this. But kids, it stings, some of the negative messaging. And so I am curious if this conversation has even come up in your household. Has Heath ever
Yeah.
said, like, I wish I had bigger muscles, or I wish I, look this way, or this kid said something about my body, or grandma and grandpa said this, and I didn't like that. Or have you ever heard a comment, and how has that been talked about in your house?
He is someone who, simply put, when it comes down to all this stuff, he has recognized, and I say this with all the scars on me, he's very fortunate that when it came to body image, the only things he's ever really said was, when he was young, a few years younger, he was like, I'm slim. Also, what's interesting is when I look at his school, granted, he's now in the last weeks of attending this private school, like, there are no overweight kids there. It's crazy. And it really shows you how much health can be correlated with socioeconomic conditions. But I've even asked him about this. I was like, and not in such a crude way, but it's like, how come there are no fat kids at your school? And he goes, like, I think he said something like, I went to private school. I don't know. Like, that just doesn't exist there. What's so funny is they have tons of food. They have like all you can eat, like kind of, hot food, cafeteria, and all that stuff. But he's very much of this world. And maybe this is just we're in the new normal, right? Where our kids are like, I'm full. And it just trips me out. Now, I will say this, though. This is me. And we have some similarities. I don't know how food was for Shira, but for Brearley, it was way more like what Heath goes through. Like she grew up, her father was an investment banker. His father before him was an investment banker. They were for a multi-generational, like certainly upper middle class type family. And also, it's funny too, when I first was dating her and I would go to Philly, right? Like, yeah, it was a very like, yeah, I remember another in-law said this about the family. You eat chicken like the Rockefellers. He was also Armenian, Iranian, Armenian American. But yeah, he said that. You eat chicken like the Rockefellers. Grandma Khan ate chicken like a dinosaur. Like it was just, it was bloody, vile, disgusting. So it's just so different culturally, that relationship with food. And I think that's huge too, because sometimes we're wrestling cultural tradition and what is perceived to be, acceptable or aspirational in our modern contemporary world. But yeah, like, he's skinny, man. And I hope that it doesn't turn into anything else. But so far, he has been absolved from the pains and throngs that I went through with
Yeah.
Big
Well,
Bud.
and look, but I think that the reality is it can hit no matter what you actually look like, right? I think um,
Yeah, very
that
true.
when you think about body image, it's this idea of feeling confident in yourself, no matter what society tells you, which becomes harder, if you are in a larger body. That's just right, a reality of the way society treats larger people, fat people, right? And I think, not everybody experiences this. Thankfully, not everybody experiences, trauma around their own body. But I think enough people do, and enough parents have, that it's important that we don't repeat, the same kind of toxic messaging. And so, like, I just want to kind of go through what these conversations can be like, and I think depending on your kid's age, it can start really young. Uh,
Hmm.
and your kid might come to you and say, like, I wish I was skinny, or you're skinny, or I don't want to be fat, or am I fat, or, like, why does my body look like that? Any kind of question where essentially they're looking for external validation on their external appearance. Um, and as a parent, you're stopped dead in your tracks. And, the impulse, I think, as a protector and you mean well, would be for a parent to say, like, oh, you're not fat, you know? Oh, or don't say that. Don't say that about yourself,
Yeah.
which is essentially like the parent equivalent of like calm down, which how often does that help? Hey, why don't you just calm down? Oh, well, thank you. You've really regulated my nervous system by telling me calm down. that puts everything in perspective. So just saying to your kid when they're expressing kind of doubt or fear or insecurity about their body, oh, don't say that, or don't say that about yourself. It's not actually helpful. Or even, and again, this is like well-meaning people might say like, oh, you're beautiful just the way you are. You think it sounds nice. It's like you're beautiful, but like it doesn't actually help your self-perception. And so I think what happens is parents have this internal panic about, oh my God, I can't believe they're obsessing about their body. And I used to obsess about my body and I still obsess about my body. And, we're human and I got to save them. And so there is this worry. And it really, if you're not answering in the correct way, which it's even hard to say, it's like, oh, there's no right answer. But there are definitely wrong answers to, am I fat or I want to be skinny, kind of assertions from kids. It could lead to a worst case scenario, eating disorder, could lead to definitely shame about one's own body, or really just like a lifetime low grade feeling that like I'm not good enough, which I think
Hmm.
many, many, many millions of people and Americans certainly feel in their bodies. And a lot of that has to do with this self fulfilling prophecy from TV and movies and advertising and, GLP-1s, which are kind of a mixed bag, contributing to this obsession with thinness. And, I think, look, there's a lot of positive to be said about like healthy eating and, feeling good in your own skin. But I think there's also a lot of negative to be said about this idea of like needing to attain perfection. And you never really will because that's not real.
Yeah,
There is no such
yeah,
thing as a perfect body or a perfect body image. But I think what we want is a healthy body and a healthy body image. And so we're going to talk about how to do that because it's something that I am learning in real time as someone who was not raised with a healthy body image or healthy relationship with food. I was told this is what you should attain, this is good, this is bad, and here's how you do it. And I don't want that for my kids. Thoughts on that?
well, I'm kind of curious because I was raised where you were supposed to finish your plate, and we experienced a lot of joy around food. It was the social construct, right? This is where we're going to hang out and have fun. But I was also equally shamed. And to a degree, there was some. It wasn't coming out of left field. I was overweight. Was definitely overweight. I think I was like heavier when I was in eighth grade than I am right now. And let me tell you, I could not do a single push up then. So, it did come from a place. I'm kind of curious with you. Like, so I know, like, with grandpa from the orphanage, I could totally understand where it's like, you better, here's an extra baguette. You never know when your next meal is going to be. But, like, did you receive shame? I mean, did they say like, "Oh, Neil, you're fat," or "You're not," or "You're too skinny," or what was up with all that?
Well, and that's the crazy thing, right? Is like relatively speaking, I've never, as a kid, was probably never more than 10 or 15 pounds overweight, maybe 20. And then, you go through a growth spurt, you thin out a little bit, you kind of,
Right.
I don't want to say like fit in your body more, but like, I was more of the conventional weight of my peers. But I think, again, I'm speaking to the mental component. I definitely felt out of place because here all these other kids were thinner, and I think
I
thinness was
see.
just such a big deal in the 90s and perhaps is again today. But I think it wasn't any specific messaging from my parents. And I think that's important to note too, is like, it's not like, it's all or nothing that, as a parent, you're either going like, you're beautiful, like you're fine and let's be completely body positive, or just you fat, you know, lazy piece of garbage. Like there's a lot of in between messaging. And I think sometimes you have to figure out how to have those nuanced conversations because diet culture is everywhere. These
Hmm.
messaging, the messaging comes, from school, from media. from your peers, and from other adults commenting on kids' bodies, which hopefully is less common today, but I don't even know if it is,
You know I mean, like, it's impossible that it doesn't not. You know, you've got me wanting to maybe ask Heath a little bit more because maybe he's on the other side of it. I don't think he's out. I don't think they give the titty twisters anymore. I don't think they do that anymore. But I would be curious, and also I think it'll change when he goes to public school and there's just such a larger, wider population. I mean,
Yeah.
that's actually going to
I mean,
be.
here's what I'll tell you is like, I didn't, it wasn't this massive trauma or shame, but I never wanted to play shirts and skins. It was enough that like, please, I can't be skins, I can't be skins. And I was just like,
Yeah, same.
really, and I really didn't
Oh
like,
God, Neil, we have too
shirt
much
up
in
at school.
common. I mean,
No, and I think, but again, it wasn't as if, and so how much of that is society telling me you're ugly, you're fat, you're garbage, and we don't want our kids to feel that way, but that doesn't just happen. It's the messaging needs to be really hammered home over and over and over. And so this is a conversation about how we talk to kids about body and body image and weight. And this is a conversation about how to help our kids understand their own bodies, protect them from feeling shame about their own bodies, and build a relationship with food and movement that's not rooted in fear, that is rooted in positive vibes and control. Because I also think part of it is, speaking to the Bangladeshi history, and in my case, I guess like the Jewish American experience and the Depression, or just the American Depression, which maybe we'll go through again. It's like so much of it is this scarcity mindset and this fear
yeah,
that I'm not going to have more. And so, the relationship with food is this cycle of just fear and joy and fear and joy, and then
hmm
you're not in control of what you're putting in your body, and then you're not in control of how you feel about your body. And so, why does this topic hit so hard, Ollie? I mean, we've touched on it a little with our own experience, but parents carry their own body stories, right? Like Ben Jacobs said so beautifully the other day, we're not humans on a spiritual journey, we're spirits on a human journey. These
mm,
are our corporeal shells. This is the shell that is housing, I guess, the soul or whatever the thing is that is making me say these words to you right now.
hmm
But it's what we got. This is my body. This is the body I've lived in for 40 years. And it carries a lot of baggage, metaphorical,
yeah,
and sometimes literal. And that is, every name I've been called, teasing, every stray comment, and every image, that has come into my eyeballs about other people's bodies, that has then informed my own opinion about my body. So we're talking about when this subject comes up, it is triggering memories about locker room, comments from relatives, the whole clean your plate, comment that is certainly not unique to our families, that it was a generational cultural thing. And then even being praised for losing weight, which certainly many people have experienced and still experience, that can be toxic because then what is the message? Oh, you are better now. Now that
yeah,
you are thin, thinness good, fatness bad, right?
yeah,
Being mocked for gaining weight, feeling like you need to hide yourself. So, like we said, kids grow up in a world saturated with now it's, I guess, fitness influencers, weight loss culture. I can say in the dadosphere, what I see is a lot of dads, dad fitness coaches who are kind of talking directly into camera. It's like, hey, you lazy piece of shit. You want to be a better dad to your kids? Get off the couch. I'm looking for 5 guys who want to drop 30 pounds by summer. Do it for your kids. Do it for your family. You owe it to them. Come on, get off your ass. Like, do you see those guys on Instagram?
I did. I know what our next sketch is going to be. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just. I mean, that's. Um, yeah, of
You
course.
want to lose 5 pounds? Get off your ass.
Well, now you're doing the Colin Jost Pete Hexon. You just went full on Pete Hexon. There. Let's clear that. But it is funny. Like as someone who like just had so much like pain, like shame, like want to talk about the mile run that made me want to cry and all that stuff. And now, like, it's really weird too because like I have I feel like in the twilight, dude. The party is almost over, and now, like, I at least I mentally, I think I should probably do the stress test. But like, I have like a very strong heart rate. You know, like I can do all this stuff, and it's weird. I feel very empowered. I actually feel mentally like I'm fixing the pain that I experienced before because I was afraid. I was afraid of exercise. I was afraid of going, you know what? Like something's not working right here. And it's such a catch 22 because, you know, of course, like I've loved it when people have said over the years, oh, you've lost weight. It was like very flattering. There is a mixed messaging there for sure. But then I think when it comes to our kids, it's really like, I think the one thing we can say too is the world has changed so much from how our grandparents were raised to our parents to us to our kids, right? So it's really like, I think we just need to evolve how we talk about food, health, body image, and the differences between what is on the outside and what is on the inside. I mean, I think that is kind of really what it comes down to because I can tell you genuinely, like, I've literally felt this like yesterday. I was like, God, it feels so good when I exercise, but in my head, I'm like, damn, I just did this. I grabbed two. I'm squatting with 50 pounds on my holding, you know, two 25-pound weights. Like, and it does feel good. Like there is some positivity. So Neil, get up off your butt and stop being some fat jerk. We're gonna get around.
Boy,
It was so excellent. It was
I don't
so
even know if this will be
epic.
topical when this airs. Um,
That's true.
so
It won't exist.
you're absolutely right. We need to change the way we talk about body image, and that's what we're here to do. So 37 minutes into the pod, let's get to it,
Oh
huh?
my god.
Hey, so here's what body image actually is, and here's what body image isn't. I'm gonna run you through the definition. Body image is how someone thinks about their body. Body image is how you feel about it. And body image is how much you tie your identity to your body, to your external appearance. That's body image. Basically, just how you think and feel about your body and how you tie your identity to your body. That's what body image is when we talk about it, right? What is body image influenced by? It's influenced by all the things we were talking about. It. Body image is influenced by peers, media, family, language, cultural norms, like you were saying. And here's what body image is not. It's not about weight, or it's not just about weight. It's not just about appearance. And it's not something that magically appears in adolescence. It's not like you wake up at 15 and go, I have a body image now. Your body image starts, yeah, as soon as you come out. You know, you're getting all these messages about bodies immediately. And then certainly as you learn to talk and form your own opinions and listen and learn, you know, there's that Sondheim, children will listen. You know it?
I'm not a musical guy. That's
I
your
know,
department.
I know. But children will listen. It's true. And so we're listening, you know, kids are listening to what we're saying about our bodies, other people's bodies. You know, you think, oh, you know, you and your wife are in the car just making fun of somebody for being fat. They hear that, you know, and they think, oh, okay, that person is not valued because they're fat and we're making fun of them for being fat. And I think that so often in culture, and I'm guilty of this too, if there's someone we don't like, maybe because they've done a shitty thing or they're bad people. We find an external thing about their appearance and make fun of it. Oftentimes it's their weight. But here's the thing. Their weight is the least bad thing about them. Perhaps it's not bad at all. It's just they're a shitty person because they did a shitty thing. And then we go, that fat loser. And what is that message sending? It's sending fatness bad. And actually, I think it does a disservice to the actual bad acts they did. Because what you're saying is, I'm going to hurt you in a way that it's just kind of lazy. Just hurt, you know, if you want to hurt someone because they did a bad thing, call out the bad thing they did rather than
Hmm.
talk about their external appearance because that has absolutely nothing to do with the evilness that is rotting inside of them. It has nothing to do with it. Your weight. It's just you're just a bad person who could be thin, fat, round, square. Kind of doesn't matter.
Mm. I
I
guess
want
that's
people to be
why.
judged on the content of their character, not the size of their waist. How about that?
Not the amount of loose skin they carry.
Yeah.
All right, continue. All right, this is
Sure.
good.
So this is about a reframe, Ollie. How do we reframe body image for kids? Well, as we've established, body image develops slowly
Hmm.
over time through everyday conversations. It's not like, and think about the millions of images that are pelted at us from, I mean, when we were growing up, it was magazines, and TV, and now it's just the internet over and over and over and over, and still sometimes TV and billboards and stuff, but like the amount of images that are thrown at us. And I'll say, and you know this as someone who came up in TV casting, and I who came up in the TV development world, I mean, the amount of just gross stuff you heard about, well, are they TV? You know what they were saying is, are they skinny enough? You
Mm.
know,
Oh, I mean, Jesus, you
and
gotta go
sometimes they would
there.
just say it overtly as, they were a little too fat, I think. But then it just became like, I don't know if they pop on TV. All of these euphemisms for just being fat phobic.
Yeah.
And they're happening again, with the proliferation of GLP-1s, which again have medical use. But in as much as it relates to the ways in which we talk about our bodies and other people's bodies, it can be very damaging. So,
Hmm.
what are we here to do? We're here to reframe our kids' relationship with their own bodies, and maybe heal ourselves in the process. So, the key ideas here are you got to remember this. If you remember only one thing, let it be this until the other thing that I say remember. But for now, our bodies do this. This is what our bodies can do. Our bodies grow, they change, they store energy, they move, and they heal us. What a beautiful thought, right? Like when I'm thinking about like 14-year-old Neil watching MTV's Spring Break and all these just like six-pack abs and me just feeling like a fat loser in high school, like imagine if someone had told me, "Hey, your body is just there to keep you safe. It changes. That's totally normal, natural. It's there to store energy for you so you can live, and it's there to heal you." Like, what a beautiful idea. Instead of just like, "Hey, do you want to get six pack abs and come to Tampa for Spring Break MTV? Because you're valuable if you have a six pack." It's like, get out of here.
You lost a lot of people with the whole MTV reference, but it is interesting. Like, it is about finding kind of something perhaps more spiritual, or something deeper than the physical return of eating of eating in a caloric deficit. I mean, that's all it is, right? All this is like, oh yeah, like yeah, if you eat in a caloric deficit, you will not have reserved energy. That is like the actual scientific way of saying you will not carry excess weight.
Right.
But what is it
By the
that
way,
really gets
excess
that
weight,
message right?
if we're thinking about evolution, excess weight served a purpose, right? You called it reserves. Reserves because who knows what will come.
Hmm.
You may need that. I mean, if you think about animals, they have, fat reserved for the periods where there is no, other animals or plants to eat because of the
Hmm.
climate, changing. And so they got to hold on to that fat. And I think because we've evolved and advanced as a society where that's not a concern because you can DoorDash whatever you want, within 5 minutes, are the way we look at our own bodies has changed. I mean, let's look to the Renaissance period where, the ideal beauty was presented as a heftier man or woman, right? That was seen as the projection of health, and then that changed over time. So these ideals are not set in stone. Our perception of body image changes just as much as our bodies change, which is all natural. But so here's another key thing to remember is that bodies aren't projects, they're homes. Huh? How about that?
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
Your weight is not a measure of your worth, but it's a characteristic of your body, which is your home. It just is. It's not good
Hmm.
or bad. It is. How about that for some philosophy on a Tuesday morning?
You know what's crazy is we're just trying to like literally make our kids not feel sad or angry or not sad or angry about their body image, right? And that's kind of the goal here. But if you think about it, there is so much to unpack about all of this stuff because it has to do with desire and approval. I mean, you brought up the home analogy. Guess what? People have insecurities about where they live, and at some point, you just have to say, well, what's what are the essentials here? Does my body function? Do I have pain? Can I move up and down? Do I have a roof over my head so when it rains I don't get wet so I can sleep at night? I mean, these are big things. It's really hard because like I think what's so funny is we're trying to be like, oh, let's talk to our kids so they don't feel trauma, but we are scarred by this trauma.
Well, and that's the thing is how are we not repeating the mistakes? And inevitably we will be repeating some of it, but I think we want to repeat less, right? I think that's the goal
Yeah.
is to try to be better, be world's greatest dads. And so some of the messages I got about food and eating and body growing up that I imagine you shared because we've established our childhoods were relatively similar. There was this whole thing of like watching what you eat. You still hear people say it today. I got to watch what I eat.
Yeah.
This idea of like hyper vigilance,
Hmm.
an extent of obsession on what you eat is such a bummer way to go through life. Like we're not
Yeah.
Wahlberg, we're not training for some boxing movie.
Yeah.
We need to monitor every single calorie that comes into our body. That's not fun.
Hmm.
But that was the messaging was you gotta watch what you eat. We already talked about the complements tied to weight loss. Your worth being very closely associated with the size of your body and how much you weighed, and also there was a lot of just absence of discussion about bodies changing, which is normal. That is what happens. That's the point. If you live long enough, your body will change and change again and change again. That's life, right? And I think
Hmm.
there is this idea that you are supposed to be frozen in time uh, in whatever the society's ideal body is. And when you are no longer in that body, you are now sent out to pasture and no longer worthwhile, worth anything. So, a lot of the negative messaging also, the locker room comparisons. There was a lot of teasing about body shape that happens from kids. And again, just like bigotry, kids don't learn, kids don't come out knowing this. They learn it, right? They learn it
Hmm.
from adults. They hear it from movies and TV. Kids don't go, ah, I know. I'll say a really shitty thing about this kid's body. It just light bulb over my head. It came out of nowhere. That's not how it works. We learn how to say these things. So if we want our kids to be better, then we need to be better about the way we talk about our own bodies and the way we talk about other people's bodies. So here's what the research says, all right? Here are key findings. This is from professionals, not, armchair psychologists like us. Key
My God.
findings from child development and eating disorder research about body image in kids. Number one, children learn body attitudes from adults. Duh. Kids whose parents frequently diet or criticize their bodies are more likely to develop body dissatisfaction. Go figure. If your mom or dad is dieting all the time and just saying, I'm fat, I don't like the way I look, you may think, oh, well, I'm just talking about my body. I never comment on my kid's body. Well, guess what? They're thinking that that's how they should talk about their own bodies.
Hmm.
If they see you talk about your body in a negative way. So, one thing is not only how do you talk about or not talk about your kids' bodies or other kids' bodies or other people's bodies, but your own body. The way you talk about your own body is the way your kid will internalize how they can and should talk about their own body. So, don't talk about your body in a negative way in front of your kids. Pretty simple. Number two, weight talk predicts body shame. Frequent conversations about weight, even in a
Yeah.
concerned way, can increase the risk of disordered eating. Now, I understand if you are concerned about your kid's weight, you may feel like you need to talk about this over and over and
Hmm.
over. But think about it in another facet of, if your kid's struggling with academics or, maybe a social issue with a friend. Imagine you're talking about it over and over and over and over. Do you think that's going to make it better? Hey, you got to do
Hmm.
your homework, got to do your homework, got to do your homework. Like, so, hey, we got to lose weight, you got to lose weight. That's never good. Don't do
Hmm.
that. So, weight talk, too much weight talk is almost definitely going to produce body shame. So, don't talk about weight so much. All right. Number three, body dissatisfaction can begin very early. Studies show children as young as elementary school comparing body size and attractiveness. All right, so kids are smart, kids are perceptive, kids are looking around them, kids are looking at their own bodies and other bodies. So, lest you think this is again something that happens just in like middle or high school, no way. It's happening very young. And that's why we're having these conversations. No matter, maybe when your kids are infants and they're not talking yet. Okay, you don't have to talk about body image with them. But again,
Then you can call them fat. Totally fair.
yeah, well, and you know what's funny is when babies are fat, that's an adorable good thing. Why? Because
Yeah.
we know that means health. They're healthy, and then things start to change. As they get a little bit
It's
older.
true. You don't. I remember people were ski. Heath was born like a little early. Like he was small. I mean, he was. It took 6 months before he turned into like the little Gerber baby, you know. And I remember like it would put a shudder down some people's spines to be like, "Oh my God, it's so thin." And I'm like, "Isn't skinny good? You're a vegan." I was like, "This is what we want."
Not in babies, yeah, right.
No, no,
Um,
Skeletor baby is not a popular, not aspirational baby.
Here's an interesting thing that I never thought of, and might help some of the dads out there, and certainly will help me, is one way to protect your kid's body image is to use body functionality language. And that's that kids who hear more about what bodies can do develop healthier body image. So instead of thinking about just, the critiques on bodies existing, oh, you're big, you're small, you're, this size, that size. If you talk about bodies that can run, bodies breathe, bodies can help you climb,
Mm.
bodies can hug, bodies can help you touch things and sense danger, like, bodies can heal you, like all the things that bodies can do. Using that language more frequently actually helps your kids develop a healthy body image, which is
Hmm.
like, again, seems so obvious, but when you put it that simply, it makes so much sense. It's like, yeah, why don't we talk about our bodies can help us talk to each other. Our bodies
Yeah.
can help us sing. Our bodies can help us play instruments. Our bodies can help us take a walk and look at nature. Like when you think about how amazing it is, how lucky we are to have these bodies, and it's more of like, what's the positive thing? Like body positivity doesn't just have to be like, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're handsome, no matter your size. It can be body positivity is, oh my God, how positive that my body allows me to high five, that my body
Yeah.
allows me to take a yoga class.
It's
I
really
like- that's
interesting,
body positivity, huh?
but I,
Blowing your mind here?
but I'll tell you because this is what's so interesting for me as I honestly think about Heath is that for someone who does not struggle, he is aware. And I don't want to call it obsessed, but this is what happens. Because he'll say things like, oh, that dude's jacked, you know? Or he'll even say to me, like, I'm gonna be taller than you. He's already like having these desires of achieving something that is a physical observation. But the flip of it, because let's be honest too, like there is something aspirational when we see someone who's like, as a man, I can be like, yeah, dude, that dude's freaking jacked. Like that's cool. That that is something desirable, right? Can you really remove that desire exactly, or can you reframe it? Because like we'll talk about athletes, even like coordination, like an F1 formula racer, and how like within milliseconds they can like trigger a button, or obviously talking about LeBron's pretty beefy, but it's like the fact that he can hit elevation at 40. Like these are actually, I think, are interesting ways to accept the fact that your kid will have certain desires that are physical manifestations. But it's like, well, what did LeBron do to maintain that? Like, what was he doing? Like, what was his regimen? Because I just think that there's this is hard, man. You know what I mean? Like, there is so much of this stuff that's just like you can say whatever you want to your kid, right? But they're still going to live in a world that is currently very obsessed with the external appearance. It's a lot to think
And
about.
you're absolutely right. And we're not going to necessarily change culture, but I think, it's we're one raindrop, in our own homes. And I think like, we can either make it better or make it worse or do nothing, right? I mean, that's what my psychiatrist actually, when I first
I was
went,
gonna say you just ripped some good ones right
good,
there. I
right?
was like,
Yeah, I
are
can't
you
take credit
writing
for that.
songs on the
Can't
side?
take credit for that. But when I first went on Zoloft, he said, and he was like, we were trying to figure out if it was working, and he's like, look, there are three ways this can go. You know, it can make you feel better, it can make you feel worse, or it could be no effect. And I was like, huh. And and I was like, that's pretty much everything in life is better, worse, or nothing. And so it's our job to try to be on that better side. Now, how much better? You're fighting against the tide. You do the best you can. You want to help your
Hmm.
kids ride the wave. How many analogies, mixed metaphors am I going to throw in here? A
Lots.
bunch.
War.
Here's the last piece of this whole what the research says is family culture matters more than perfection. We're not going to get this exactly right. We've already meandered 1,000 times over in this episode alone. But I think the more that you can try to cultivate a healthy relationship with body, a healthy relationship with food, and not, allow for shame to be normalized for your kids, the better. You're not going to get it perfect, but the trying, again, it's not a zero sum game, just like parenting isn't a zero sum game. You do the best you can, unlike our parents who could have done better. Just kidding. And so that
Every
means,
day.
hey,
Every
we
day I
want to
think
normalize diversity in bodies. Bodies are different. That's fine. That's
yeah.
normal. But some people are big, some people are small, some people are tall. Like it feels again so simple, but don't tie worth to it. It's just, hey, how beautiful. We're always talking about diversity in culture and foods and, country of origin and religion. Diversity means body diversity too. That's
Hmm.
a good thing. It's
Hmm.
good that all our bodies aren't alike. We want to name the feeling, don't shame the feeling, and we want to separate our health from our appearance. Remember, and this has been a popular idea the last few years, Lizzo took a lot of heat because everyone was commenting on she's not healthy, she's not, and it was like, meanwhile, like the aerobics that Lizzo is doing on, her tour dance wise and singing wise and performance wise are probably more than you're able to do. So let's not, unless you've got someone's blood work in front of you
Yeah.
and you've been to medical school, maybe just don't talk about other people's health. I think
Hmm.
people kind of have this false narrative of, oh, I'm so concerned about fat people's health. It really comes from a place of concern. If you were really that concerned, maybe you shouldn't be making fun of them and making them feel bad because mental health matters too. And so if you're concerned, well, first of
Hmm.
all, why don't you start with the concern at home with the people in your own life and take a walk with them or encourage them to do, different fitness activities, if they want to. But maybe don't comment on other people's health that you know nothing about. And that's what the research says. Are you ready for the toolkit?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I've got time.
Everybody sticks around for the toolkit, Ollie. Everybody's here for the toolkit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Toolkits
the
are
world's,
huge. I see them on Substack.
come
Huge.
on, it's the world's greatest dad. Big questions.
Yeah,
Toolkit. Everybody knows about the toolkit.
yeah,
That's why you're here. Subscribe to the
yeah.
Patreon that doesn't exist yet. Ready? Here's the toolkit, A through H, for how to talk to your kids about body image. Tool A, ask questions before you interpret. We're always big on the listening, the asking questions. It's important. It's usually in every toolkit we have, but the toolkit for how to talk to your kids about body image. Tool A, ask questions before you interpret. So start with curiosity. If your kid says something about their body or body image or bodies in general, you say, oh, what made you think that about your body? Don't say, oh, don't say that about your body. But you could say, oh, what does that make you feel? Or, you know, well, what do you think about someone else's perception of their body? Like ask questions. All right, that's
Mm-hmm.
tool A. Tool B, validate the feeling. Always, we're very big into the validation. But tool B, validate the feeling. So you want to say, oh, that sounds hard, or I understand that could feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Avoid saying, don't feel that way. Avoid saying don't say that about yourself. Again, it doesn't help.
Mm.
It's like telling someone to calm down. Validating someone's feelings about anything, but especially about their body and their weight, it reduces shame, it reduces defensiveness, it allows you to be in the moment in reality. So tool B is just validate their feelings about their own bodies. That whatever it is, you're not saying it's true, but you're saying what is true is your feeling. Your feeling is true. You feel that way. Okay. Tool C, this is a big one. Separate identity from appearance. So you want to say things like bodies come in lots of different shapes. Avoid labeling bodies as good, bad. People can be skinny and fat, but you don't want to say it in a judgmental way, which is a little bit nuanced. You can say like, there's a difference between saying that's a fat body and that person's so fat. And I think we know the difference, right? There's no connotation. It just is. It's a fact. Skinny, fat, it doesn't matter. These are differences, right? Separate identity from appearance. That's tool C. Tool D, we already talked about this, but you want to normalize body diversity. You can say bodies grow and change a lot, especially when you're a kid. You don't want to say all bodies are perfect. Instead, you want to say bodies are different. Bodies are changing. Bodies are capable. Bodies can do this. Let's be realistic, because realistic acceptance beats toxic positivity. That's the other thing. There's a difference between body positivity and toxic positivity. We don't want to ignore reality, you know? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's like saying, oh, yeah, society doesn't care how you look. It does. And we're going to
Yeah.
set you up to deal with the reality and success because it's not about what they think about you. We want you to think about yourself in a positive way.
Yeah.
But let's not, as you like to say, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. People can be pretty mean, and we want to set our kids up to handle
It's a
that
little
mean.
more grim than I'd like to say. It's it's a little more grim for this one. Maybe if you're like working the heavy bag at the we're doing exercise, but for food, you're eating a 6,000 calorie sandwich. You can be like, well, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
No.
I think we gotta maybe hit that. But I like that. Yeah, the positivity, toxic positivity doesn't work either. It really doesn't
It
work. You
really
can't.
doesn't.
If anything, it's almost like I feel like a big part of this is like it's just fair to just really for us to be open about our own traumas because that's the one ironic thing is that we did not go for lack of food, but we did feel pain around food. That's what's really interesting that both of us had, and I think it's important for parents to bring that up, the
Yeah.
shame that happens around food, just plainly. I think that'll help
Yeah.
that. Plus, it's on what's on the inside that counts, Neil. Yeah.
Sure. Tool E, teach food and movement skills. You want to focus on hunger cues, talk about how food gives you energy, and talk about how, we enjoy moving our bodies. And it's about, what our bodies can do. You want to avoid the language around good foods, bad foods. That's kind of what we were talking about. Like some foods are big energy, long energy, short energy, not
I
good,
like
bad.
that.
Good,
That was a
bad
good
becomes
one.
a zero sum game, and then you're obsessed with being a good person or a bad person. And kids, they develop this, shame sense around food very early, and we want to try to avoid that. Tool
That's I'm sorry, but that is so enmeshed in our society to be like, this
F.
is a good food, that's a bad food. And he will bring that for someone who does not have any of these struggles
Mm,
with weight or with personal appearance that I can see. Nothing as visually obvious as what I went through,
sure.
and a lot of bullying that came with it. There is that obsession about like, is this good for you? Is this bad for you? Like healthy food is associated with like good and unhealthy is bad versus I think I like how you described it because it's all food. You know what I mean? There's a time and a place where you can eat your Takis, you know? You can eat your Takis, Neil.
Tool F is rehearse social moments. I know this always feels weird, but it's helpful to practice what could happen in the real world. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to help your kids practice for teasing or practice what to say when someone comments on their body or practice how they can respond when their peers are talking about diets and dieting, especially for young girls. Remember that you can say to your kids, bodies grow differently, and you can empower them to say that too. That they can say things to their peers like, I like my body, I like what my body can do. Rehearsal in life builds muscle memory, and it also just builds resilience. And they have that go-to response. They're not gonna, kids are really impressionable, as we know, and they have this tendency to like freeze and not respond in the way that maybe they want to, because they're not prepared. And the more you rehearse for these situations, the better. So help your kids by practicing how they can respond to maybe difficult situations when it comes to people talking about their own bodies. Tool G, monitor patterns, not moments. And this is an important one because sometimes, you know, kids can develop really unhealthy relationships with their body image or with food, and you want to, as a parent, really look out for food restriction, obsessive comparison to other, peers or other people's bodies. And, if you see your kid kind of like avoiding certain eating or avoiding certain activities because of their bodies, you want to step in and really make sure that they have a healthy relationship with their body image. And so, this stuff will happen. They will make comparisons. They will, and inevitably, like you're saying with Heath, make certain comments about other people's bodies or aspirational bodies or certain foods. And you just want to see, like, is this becoming a pattern where it is so omnipresent that I have to step in versus, oh, is this
Mm.
just kind of an offhanded, one-off thing, which is normal. And tool H, our final tool of the How to Talk to Your Kids About Body Image Toolkit, anchor belonging at home. Send the message at home that you belong here no matter what. You don't have to look a certain way. Your body doesn't have to be a certain way. You belong here. Your mind, body, soul is welcome here. No matter what, this is your home. Again,
Mm.
feels simple. Not every kid experiences it. Some kids feel like they have to look a certain way, whether they receive that message explicitly or implicitly. And so you just want to make sure your kid knows, like, this is a safe place for you. Your body is welcome here. Your brain is welcome here. This is where you belong, no matter what.
You
Well,
know, I think part of this is really important because when you, I mean, I feel for now very blessed that this isn't a big issue at our house, but, when frankly, when shit's hit the fan, Brearley said this, like, this is your home, this is your safe space, because stuff like this does lead to self harm. And it is really important to establish that, look, the world's not all sunshine and rainbows. We can be mean about bodies. People can be so freaking mean about their bodies. That's not going to change anytime soon. And I think that's almost the last big thing is, as your kids are growing up to eventually, hopefully, be confident adults, the safe space where they don't feel judged about how they look by your freaking parents has to be paramount, I think. Yeah, as we both know.
yeah,
And for God's sakes, I don't want to be skins. Please let me be shirts too.
I know.
Please.
So
Please.
before we depart, we always do this. I just want to give the age by age guidance. So dads who listen to this podcast might have a 4-year-old. They might have a 14-year-old. They might have a 30-year-old. If so, hey, thanks for listening, dads. Here's how to talk to your kids about body image based on their age. So when your kids are about 3 to 5, this is when you want to start making sure that they know, first of all, that their body is theirs. It belongs to them and no one else. This is when kids are starting to notice size differences. But they are not attaching any kind of moral meaning to it. They're not like fat bad, skinny good. That's us. That's us sending those messages. So, at this age, 3 to 5, kids are starting to feel curious, and where parents can start to make mistakes is kind of shushing the body questions or poo-pooing them or saying, "Oh, we don't talk about that." We do talk about it. If your kids want to talk about something, you're talking about it. We are not avoiding topics because it won't make the subject go away and it won't make them understand it. So you want to say things to your 3 to 5 year old like, bodies come in all different shapes. You want to really focus on what bodies can do. Bodies can hug, bodies can run, bodies can walk, bodies can swim, bodies can, I don't know, play video games, whatever bodies do. All the different things about bodies, sleep, bodies heal you. So that's the really simple language you want to say to your 3 to 5 year old. Getting a little older. You got a kid ages 6 through 9. They're starting to wonder, am I normal? Is my body normal? Kids start to compare their own bodies to other kids' bodies. Kids start to notice the bigger kids, the smaller kids, the stronger kids. This is where kids can start to feel embarrassment about their bodies, curiosity about their bodies, and this is, you want to be really careful. You don't want to give over reassurance, right? It's not helpful to say, you're perfect. Nobody's perfect. That's okay. That's the point. Don't lie. Don't say you're perfect just the way you are, because then they're going to change, and then what? They're no longer perfect? Be real. Normalize differences. It's totally normal to feel the way you're feeling, and everybody's different. And again, still want to encourage that body functionality. What can your body do? Let's make a list of all the great things your body can do. What do you want your body to be able to do? Why don't we work towards that as a goal? Oh, you want to go horseback riding? That's so cool that your body can do that. How do we train to do that? You know what I'm saying? Ages 10 to 12.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and you've been through this, and I have not yet, but the puberty stuff. How, puberty is starting, bodies are changing, body comparison alive and well and really intensifying during this period. So what it could feel like is massive self-consciousness, vulnerability. It's a very raw, fragile time for kids, 10 to 12. They're when puberty is starting. You don't want to minimize your kids' feelings. You want to really have open conversations about body changes. And here is when you can start to talk about media and unrealistic media standards. And we haven't even gotten into this, but when we thinking about like graphic, pornography, or even just, models and influencers online, most of that, if not all of it, is not realistic in terms of the media projecting what a person is or should look like. And it is not too early to have those conversations. When your kids are 10, 11, 12, start talking to them about like, hey, this is a projection. This isn't real. And here is what real people look like. And here is what, a real body is. And there is no one body, no matter what the media tells you. So as they get a little bit older, those teenage years, the shame and comparison is creeping in even more. What you don't want to do is lecture, and it's really hard, I'm sure, because you just want to say, this is what you should feel about your body, and here's the right way to do it. Don't lecture. So make sure that you're continuing to separate their self-worth from body size or appearance. And this is something we didn't talk about, but I rarely say to my kids, if ever, you're so beautiful, or you're so handsome, or we'll say like adorable, but usually that's tied to like their actions, and of course appearance is tied to it, but I never want my kids to feel like I'm commenting on their appearance. I just don't. And, I think they'll get enough of that. Will my kids grow up and say, my dad never told me I was pretty? I hope not, but I hope that my kids grow up to say, my dad always told me I was smart and kind and strong, and all that stuff, because I kind of don't care what they look like. I care that they feel good about what they look like, and that they feel good in their own bodies. And I think that's all we're trying to do here. So I hope that the toolkit was helpful. And if not, send us a note. Worldsgreatestdadpod at gmail.com. Yeah, we're on Google. That's right. Anything else, Ollie, before we depart?
No, I mean, I would say this. I might have a slightly controversial take on your ending point right there. Like, I'll usually reserve, like, the Heath, you look handsome for when he actually, wears pants or a shirt with buttons. Just to really get him out of the hole looking like a scrub slob 24/7. But it is funny because, like, he is, he is not, he's a little easy on the eye. You know what I mean? I could say that to a degree. And I definitely don't want to, like, overinflate that confidence. So I'll reserve it for when he has to, like, wear clothes that sit in the back of the closet. That's my way
And here's
with
the
that.
thing, you don't have to worry about that because society will do it for us.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. The truth is society's just gonna put your kids through the meat grinder. So build up an armor. Build up an armor with your love. Cause you're awesome inside and out.
And the toolkit, don't forget the toolkit.
Just use the toolkit, guys. Seriously. It is available on our paid Substack coming soon.